Look! Look, the dynamic duo!
Hey guys, welcome to the Dynamic Duo. I'm Franz.
I'm Kevin. Welcome back to Avengers Tower and the Batcave, ladies and gentlemen.
Kevin, you were giving me some announcements, interesting announcements regarding Ben Affleck. So breaking news, everybody, go.
The thing is, ladies and gentlemen, and some of you may have heard this yourselves, a few weeks prior to Christmas, Warner Brothers started talking about Ben Affleck's future as Batman and being part of the DC film universe. At some point, and nobody really knows exactly what happened in terms of their timeline, but Affleck got upset. Apparently, during this time period, Mr. Affleck got upset with the powers that be at Warner Brothers, and the reason why he got upset is because they started screaming at Warner's and applauding the fact that Ben was back as Batman, not just for the upcoming Flashpoint movie that was coming out, but for a number of other projects, including a direct-to-streaming movie that's coming to HBO Max within the next year and a half about Batgirl, and at least 3 other projects in the process. And Affleck basically told them to stop because he had not committed to any of this other material outside of the Flashpoint film, and Warner Brothers kept pushing this. They put out press releases about it. They started an entire campaign about his return, and Mr. Affleck continued to ask the powers that be at Warner Brothers to cease and desist with this. They didn't. And as of the day before Christmas Eve last week, the man decided, okay, I'm done. I quit. He's gone. All press reports and everything up till now relating to Batman is that he is simply done with Warner Brothers and DC Comics and Batman. Now, he may return to Warner Brothers for another acting job or another project later in the future, but as far as returning as Batman or having anything to do with the world of Bruce Wayne and company, the answer is no. Now, within that same step, what they've done, and everybody in the world knows that one of the big announcements about the Flashpoint movie is that Michael Keaton had agreed to come back, even if it was a cameo type of thing, to be the 89 version of Batman again within the space of that movie. Well, what Warner Brothers has now decided to do and has a commitment from Mr. Keaton on is that they have signed him to the Batgirl movie, and he is in the place of Mr. Affleck for all these other future Batman projects.
So I've got lots to say about that, but quick question. Is he going to be an alternate Batman? Is he going to be a future older Batman? How are they going to do that?
They're not saying. It'll be nice to see Michael, but Michael can't do this permanently, not because of the type of actor he is. He's a superb actor, yes, but because of his age and because of his physicality, he can't do it. If Warner's is really thinking about other projects, even outside of the Robert Pattinson thing that's coming in March, they're going to have to get another Batman, ladies and gentlemen. They have no choice. Keaton is not going to be able to maintain this for long.
He can't do it now. He can't do it now. He's too old. Again, he's a phenomenal actor. He's in great shape. It's one thing to be in great shape. It's another thing to be Batman. And Batman, that means young. That means it means a whole bunch of things. This is a shame. And it's not surprising to me. There was an interview recently with Ben Affleck on the Howard Stern show. And it was a great interview. Howard Stern is a great interviewer. And in that show, there were a couple of things that happened. First of all, the interview was extremely telling. Ben Affleck was extremely raw and honest and unfiltered, and basically let you into his, not only his personal world, but his personal psyche, his fears, his hopes, his dreams, his insecurities. It was a very, very, very interesting interview. And for those of you who haven't seen it or heard it, I recommend that you listen to it. And through that interview, so not only was it, that honest, but you could tell something was going on. You could tell that he's going through something. Typically when people sort of, reveal themselves that much, they're going through some sort of turmoil. And at times during the interview, he almost broke down. He almost choked up, talking about his life and talking about the difficulties that he faced, and talking about the times when he was insecure, and talking about how the media reacted to him and the paparazzi, and how stressful and hurtful he was. He was hurt by that reaction. And sadly and terribly, as a result of that interview, he got more of it. The media, the paparazzi came after him, and came after him in the way that he was explaining hurts him, which is a double betrayal. And immediately thereafter, I think it was like the day after, he went on Jimmy Kimmel, and he again said, listen, I get this is a comedy show, I'm paraphrasing, but bro, like, this is not cool. Like, this is not cool. I had an interview, I expressed myself, and my words were taken and they were twisted to make me look like a horrible person, and to make me look like I'm attacking my ex-wife, which was the last thing I wanted to do. I just wanted to be honest with you, the audience. So not only was he going through some stuff, but then he got double whammied by being attacked yet again. And so it's not surprising to me that Ben Affleck would say, you know what, go to hell, I don't want to deal with any of this. That's a shame, because in my opinion, he is the best Batman that's out there. Of all the Batman, he happens to be my favorite. In many ways, my only Batman. He's the closest thing to the source material that I can think of. I hate to say it, but not necessarily because of him, but because of the costume design and because of the way that the character was presented. And so it's a terrible shame, because one of the things that Affleck talked about is the idea of that loss of superstardom, that love of adulation that he was receiving. He went from being, the it guy, the Academy Award winning it guy that everybody was talking about, to the guy people were not inviting to parties, to the guy who was the Inquirer tabloid front page, but his movies were tanking. And so while he was saying that, I'm thinking to myself, dude, then Batman is your greatest opportunity, because it's guaranteed stardom at the highest level. If you're Batman, you're a star. If you're Superman, you're a star. Tom Holland is a movie star simply because of Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. Simply because of Spider-Man. You take Spider-Man away from Tom Holland, then he goes right. Look, same thing that happened to Tobey Maguire. Don't get me wrong. They're still actors and they're still working, but they're no longer stars. And so Ben Affleck, you could be right there in the pinnacle of the conversation if you're Batman. Mm-hmm. And you need that, as you explained that to us, and you're giving that up? And you're giving it up for what? Uncertainty? Now, I'm not saying you're giving it up in a blameful way. I'm saying it in a like, oh, that's a shame, because I want better for you. I get the pain that he's going through. I understand why he would make that decision. I'm hoping that someone will talk him down off the ledge. I'm hoping that he will, kind of refine himself, recenter himself, and get himself together, and that it's not the end of Batman as we know him. But either way, I wish him well, and it's a terrible shame to me.
One last thing that I'd like to add before we wrap up, and I don't know how many people know this. There were two reasons why he worked with Zack Snyder for the big ultimate Justice League Snyder cut. One, because just like a number of other people that were part of that whole project, he wanted Snyder's vision to have the gravitas and the big bang and everything that they had originally put together when they were working on the film to begin with. That was one of the reasons. The other was that over time, he had developed a really decent personal friendship with Zach himself. And he basically came back even within what they were doing with the Snyder Cut as a personal favor to Zack Snyder himself. So for anybody wondering, is this real because he did this, the Snyder Cut? Yes, it's real. Yes, it's real. Keaton himself has even confirmed that he's coming back as Batman. I did, for anybody, again, not to beat a dead horse with this, but for anybody that's sitting there saying, oh, Michael Keaton's going to be Batman for the next 10 years. No, he's not. No, he's not. Consider the fact that the last time anybody saw Michael Keaton play this part was in Batman Returns in 1992-93. Hasn't been done since. Okay, so and
that's 30 years ago.
Yeah, and regardless of whether he wanted to come back and play the part or not, the fact of the matter is Michael came back because of all the money that Warner Brothers and all concerned offered him. And one last thing that I do want to say, because this is along the line a part of his return. Years ago, both he and Jack Nicholson were offered money to come back and be the Joker and Batman in roughly a dream sequence for whoever was going to play Batman at the time, whether it was Val Kilmer or even during the Clooney age. They had been offered a boatload of money. Nicholson had been offered almost $80 million to come back and play the Joker. Keaton had been offered close to 65 to 70 million himself, and they both turned it down. The reason why he is back in the Batcave now, ladies and gentlemen, and I have it on good authority, I can't say because I don't want to get the individual in trouble, because they've already given me a dollar amount on what he was paid. But the fact of the matter is, Mr. Keaton was paid in excess of $100 million to do this again. That's what he's back for.
Yeesh. Now here's the problem with that, Kevin.
Was insane.
I hate to say it, but I don't think it's worth it. I'm sorry. Let me tell you what I mean by that. I love Michael Keaton, and I'm not trying to say that Michael Keaton isn't worth $1 billion. Michael Keaton is a treasure, a national treasure. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that from a business and investment point of view, you pay to get a return on your investment. And so I don't think that the Michael Keaton Batman at this age is enough of a draw to warrant $100 million. To get $100 million worth of people to say, I'm going to go see this movie because Michael Keaton is playing Batman. I don't think that's worth it, particularly at that age. I don't see it. And so when you do that, that means your movie is going to cost what? $300 million? Because if you're paying one actor $100 million, plus you got to pay the cost of the movie, which is, $100 million. That $100 million now is for like a relatively low budget action movie. Mm-hmm. So, you're looking at the 150, 200 million, whatever, now are those movies, particularly in the time of COVID, going to be able to generate that kind of return? I wouldn't have done it if I was Warner Brothers or whoever else. And
one of the reasons why he's doing this Batgirl film, not that I want to put any kind of stigma on this upcoming project, because I am one of the people that's looking forward to it. But I'll tell you, because it's already been told to me, one reason why he's doing it is simply because after what they've given him for this Flashpoint movie, other executives and people within the financial end of what the company is about, which is along the line of what you're saying, basically have said, we just paid his behind all this money. We better get something else out of him.
Out of him. Yeah. Yeah. It's the same. I was just thinking about this. It's like Tobey Maguire. Tobey Maguire is my favorite Spider-Man. The Sam Raimi Spider-Man 1 and 2 to me is the only Spider-Man and one of the best superhero. That's my favorite superhero movie. Tobey Maguire, I love that Spider-Man. But the fact that he was in the Far From Home or whatever the last one is, I always forget the title. That wasn't enough of a draw. Say that again?
No Way Home.
No Way Home. The fact that he was in there was interesting, was cute, was great to see him, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't worth $100 million. It wasn't worth me going to the theaters to watch it. That's not the only reason I went to watch that movie. And if it was, I would have waited for it on HBO. I seriously, if that was the only reason, I would have waited for it on HBO. So it's an interesting thing. They could do something very interesting, but I hate to say it, I'm not looking forward to it. What they could do is they could do The Dark Knight Returns with Michael Keaton as the older Batman. That would make a lot of sense because it's Michael Keaton, now he's older. But I know you love Michael Keaton as Batman, and you know how I feel about the Michael Keaton Batman. That's not who I want to be The Dark Knight Returns. I need someone with a bigger physique. I need a different actor than Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton is a great actor, and I would want someone else to, a Clint Eastwood from Heartbreak Ridge to that's The Dark Knight. You know what I mean?
I do like the '89 movie, and I love the '89 movie in my own way, but to be honest with you, part of my love for the '89 movie, even with its flaws, and I'm admitting this, is that aside from being the Star Wars fanatic that I am, and I'm a Batman nut, part of my love for '89 was that I had wanted for so long to have a Batman movie, almost like with the Christopher Reeve thing of saying, there's a Superman movie, that it's so ingrained in me in terms of liking the film, I can't let it go even with its flaws. So absolutely. I'm admitting that within me.
Absolutely. Okay? That's brilliant.
It's like my love for the 66 material with Adam West, Burt Ward, and company. I know that stuff is campy, it's silly, it's a whole bunch of things, but at the same time, I still love, yes, Commissioner. And
I applaud you, my friend. I applaud you again. That's why I love you. I applaud you because that's the best way to put it. And I understand that. I get it wholeheartedly. That impact, my friend, because I am there. By the way, I have the statue of Michael Keaton. I love that movie too. You know what I mean? That impact of that movie on us as fans was no joke. My God. I know you got me beat by at least threefold. But I went to see that movie 9 times in the movie theater. I waited online. The first time I saw it, I was with my best friend at the time who passed away. Rest in peace, my boy Ace and Rome. Ace. Anyway, shout out to Ace. Shout out to Ace. But anyway, Kirk Jones. But anyway, Jesus Christ, it's gonna bring a tear to my eye thinking about going to the movies. I didn't mean to do that. No. Going to the movies, standing online in Manhattan in the cold with my boy, you know, on the line. What an experience. And then we were like blown away, like mind blown watching that movie. So I get that love 100%. You know, and being able to have that love and to recognize that there are flaws, the same way I love 66 Batman, but I acknowledge that it's a campy thing. I wouldn't want Adam West to be the next guy.
Are you aware that in the 89 movie, he and Burt Ward were supposed to make an appearance, but Tim Burton put a stop to it?
Oh, I didn't know that. No, I didn't know.
Adam was supposed to play his father doing the shooting scene, and Burt Ward originally, even though it was done by Tracy Walter, when his parents get killed, when Bruce's parents get killed, the guy that does the thing of "Come on, Jack, let's go," that was supposed to have been Burt Ward. And they were Warner Brothers at the time when the movie was being made was pushing for both of them to make an appearance in the movie. They had agreed to do it, okay? And when whoever goes back to the director and says, look, we have an idea, we want something done, it's just a cameo, Burton threw up this big curtain and said, if you force me to put the two of them in it, I quit.
Wow.
They were supposed to be in the film.
This is a perfect example of this is Taika Waititi, and I hate to say it, Taika Waititi with Thor. In other words, Burton didn't understand. By the way, admittedly so. He says so. The superhero genre was not his genre. Yeah. Tim Burton to me is a genius. He's an absolute genius. By the way, Taika Waititi is very good. I'm not gonna say he's brilliant, but he's a great comedic writer. He's a very talented guy. I'm not coming for their talent or who they are, but they didn't understand the material. And here's what it was, I imagine, for Tim Burton. First of all, he was stressing out as to this is the biggest movies that he'd ever done. He wanted it to be serious, and everybody in the world wanted it to be anti-campy. This was around the time where it was like anti-campy. Please prove my superheroes to be adult and not campy. So he didn't want to put, I'm sure part of it was the reason why he didn't want to put those guys, because he didn't want to associate campiness. But you could take those actors and not make them campy, not make them add campy, and it would have been a beautiful nod to the history of the character to add those two actors in a non-campy way. The same way they put Stan Lee in the movies, even though a lot of times it's comedic, but the same way they put Stan Lee, it's a little nod to the characters and it's a mistake on Tim Burton, and it's because he doesn't and never understood the mythos of the character.
Exactly.
And that's a failed opportunity. That would have been neat. You know, having said that, it is what it is. Batman 89 is indelible in our minds as one of the classics. It really is. You know.
Are you aware that Batman and Robin was only put together because of one spoken line from Batman Forever?
Oh, no.
Uh-huh. Do you remember when Batman and Robin arrive at Enigma Island in Batman Forever, and as Chris O'Donnell is making his climb, he does the Holy Rusted Metal Batman?
I saw that, yeah.
Basically what happened during that time, DC and Warner Brothers was sending in, almost like you get mystery shoppers, they were sending people into theaters to find out what the audience response was for the entire movie. Of course, anybody that is as nostalgic as myself or even you to a point, I know I love the 60s stuff more than you do, but anybody that remembered those days, we went ape crazy when that little line was spoken. You know, little 20-second line, but people were like, yeah, and they started applauding in the whole 9 yards. That response caused those mystery viewing people to go back to the home office, and I'm telling you the truth, Ron, they literally said the next movie needs to be like that.
Wow.
So they they restructured
Wow.
everything relating to Batman and Robin to fit the 60s motif. Because when you really look at it, even though the movie is bad, it's trying to be like one of the 60s
It is. It is.
episodes, but keeping it serious at the same time.
Again, this is another example of not knowing the material. There's so much of that. There's so much of that. Part of the reasons why Kevin Feige was so successful is because he understood the material better than the other people. But having said that, I'm going to say this. Kevin Feige understands the material. He doesn't understand it from the generation. And this is going to be, I'm not even sure I'm going to post this one. But he doesn't understand it from the best generation. Kevin Feige understands it from the post-90s renaissance of the material.
Yes.
He doesn't understand it from what got us there in the first place. That original classic Stan Lee, Kirby, Ditko, era. And while people look down on that era, it should not be looked down on. It was the material that produced everything that we see. That's the energy that should be tapped onto more than anything else. And so as successful as Kevin Feige is and has been, and as great of a job as he has done, I venture to say it would be that much more successful if he tapped into that material. And proof of the pudding would be Hulk would be more successful. Fantastic Four would be more successful. Thor would be more successful. So the body of work would have been, it would have been as successful as Iron Man, which to me is great. As successful as, I don't like the first Captain America, but Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Civil War. Doctor Strange, those characters that tap more into the 60s than some of the modernish interpretation of Spider-Man and Hulk and Thor and all that other stuff.
That's why, and I'll make this my final statement. That's why I'm worried about Matt Reeves, the Batman, because to me, he is stepping so far away from what makes Batman Batman. And I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, just making the character dark does not mean you're making a successful Batman.
I
All
agree.
it means is that you're making a very dark world within what you're doing.
I couldn't agree with you more. And by the way, here's a mistake that Kevin Feige is making, and that DC is following suit. DC follows whatever Marvel does, both in the comic books and in the movies. And here's the mistake that they're making. Failed concepts. They're following failed concepts. One of the primary failed concepts is the multiverse. What Crisis on Infinite Earth was about was the recognition. I disagree. I didn't say that to Roy Thomas because he hates the Crisis on Infinite Earth because he likes all the characters.
Yeah.
But what he failed to realize is that Crisis introduced me to DC, because the multiverse was so confusing. It was unattractive to me. I never was a DC person. I refused to pick up a DC comic book until it started making sense. So while I understand the loss of characters that he loved, and that was a negative thing, I get that. But he also needs to understand that through that loss, it introduced DC characters to a whole new audience. And so the multiverse is a failed concept, and it creates confusion. If I'm a Spider-Man fan, am I a Tom Holland fan? Am I a Tobey Maguire fan? Am I a Spider-Man fan or am I a Tom Holland fan? And what happens when the next guy makes, you know what I mean? Like, when you have that level of confusion, you're diluting the material. And as you dilute it, the interest, the connection, everything gets diluted, and it's less and less and less and less. And so they're going with the multiverse approach, multiple versions of Batman, multiple versions of Spider-Man, That's a mistake. It's one thing for two different characters to play the same character.
Mhm.
It's another thing to say, I'm going to reinterpret the character, reinvent the character. Tom Holland is, and I've been watching YouTube videos about this, who other people recognize this too, besides us, thank God. But Tom Holland's Spider-Man is simply not Spider-Man. It's not Spider-Man. It's a Spider-Man. It's a Spider-Man, but it's not Spider-Man. No more than Miles Morales is Spider-Man. No more. No more than Spider-Man 2099 is Spider-Man. It's just a Spider-Man. And that's a shame.